Coming up on the Paper Talk today, we'll be talking about Old Trafford. Yes, that. Is it going to be a revamp or a rebuild? And what are this task force up to? You've got a load of politicians sat around the table discussing Manchester United's future. So let's get into all that. Also, we've been linked with a Dutch striker, of course. When are we not linked with anyone from the Eredivisie? Plus, we'll be looking at a couple of other stories doing the rounds as well. So let's get into it. Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and it's mild, but it's spitting. Get them in. Make sure you are getting involved in the chat and the comments and hitting that like, share and subscribe button. We want to get to 750,000 subscribers by the end of the season. And with your support, yes, we can get there. Loads of stories to get through, so I'll crack on. The big story doing the rounds is the stadium plans and what's going on there. There's this task force that are looking at the stadium and the infrastructure and all the rest of it. But before we get into that, there's a couple of other stories as well. There's some quotes coming from Casemiro. He did an interview. I think it's from Chingrito TV, it's called. And he was speaking about the time where he left Real Madrid and about the fact that he was... The only time he was unsure is when he spoke to Carlo Ancelotti, who basically said he didn't really want him, let him go, and I think they were very emotional, both of them, and he was talking about that was the time he doubted whether it was the right move to leave Real Madrid. He also spoke about Real Madrid beating City. Now, he was pleased from a Real Madrid point of view because he's got lots of friends who play for Real Madrid, and from a Manchester United point of view because they're our rivals. And yes, I am still talking about Real Madrid beating Manchester City in the Champions League. So, interesting interview for Casemiro. It's not been a great season for him, has it? Let's not pretend. He doesn't look the same player that we saw at Real Madrid or when he arrived. Now, the big question when it comes to Casemiro, is this the beginning of the end for him? Are we watching the decline of a once great player, arguably one of the greatest defensive midfielders of all time? Or is this a blip? Is he going through something? Is he not fully fit? Is it just form? Whatever. I'm beginning to think it might be the format. I'm beginning to think we might be seeing the decline of someone who was just phenomenal for Real Madrid for so many years. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am, and I hope we can see from the end of this season Casemiro regain his mojo, put in the kind of performances we have seen in a red shirt, let's not forget, and help Manchester United end the season on a high. Get involved in the chat and the comments and let me know what you think. On another story as well, Brian Brobbey, the Ajax striker. There's a story in the Mirror, and I think this has come from a Q&A he's done with a Dutch magazine, talking about the fact that one day he'd be open to the idea of coming to Manchester United. He didn't just name Manchester United, by the way. He named other clubs as well, including Arsenal. He was linked heavily with a move to Manchester United when Erik ten Hag first came in. I think there was talk of getting him from was it Leipzig, coming to Old Trafford, went to Ajax instead. He spoke after that about the fact he didn't even think he had Erik ten Hag's number anymore because Erik ten Hag had wanted to bring him to Old Trafford. However, in this recent interview, he said that he is open to the move. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Banging in the goals in the Dutch league. I think he's got 17, I think, for Ajax in the Dutch league this season. I think 21 in all competitions, if I'm right on my maths. So he's obviously scoring a lot of goals. Been linked quite heavily with us, as have all successful Dutch players or players that have played in Holland or players that have even been to Holland. Seems that anyone who's got any connection whatsoever with Holland is linked to Manchester United. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. There's so many ifs and buts going on with future signings. Is Erik ten Hag going to be in charge? Will the new manager, if there's a new manager, want Brian Brobbey? What's going to happen? Is it going to be Dan Ashworth or Jason Wilcox who's decided transfers? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, one to keep an eye on. Get involved in the chat and the comments and let me know what you think. The main story, the rejuvenation, revamp, whatever you want to call it, rebuild of Old Trafford. Story in the Times about how Manchester United, Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe are looking at the potential of rebuilding or revamping, I should say, let's get it right, Old Trafford rather than rebuilding a new stadium. They're looking at all the different options. There was talk that if you were to revamp Old Trafford, you could save yourself £1 billion rather than a complete rebuild. There's that sort of talk. There's looking at what's going on at Barcelona. Could that be an option? We look at what Barcelona have done. They've sort of rebuilt Camp Nou, haven't they, rather than build a completely new stadium. I think they're playing their matches this season in the Olympic Stadium for the '92 Olympics. Is it the Stadia Lewis Company Stadium? If I've pronounced that, it's not a word. Pronounced that right at all? I don't know. So they're looking at all the options. There's this task force. They're looking at whether it could be a revamp, whether it could be a completely new stadium, whether it could be a rebuild, whether it would save a few quid to revamp Old Trafford. There's a lot of debate going on around this with Manchester United fans. Some United fans are saying, look, Old Trafford isn't fit for purpose. You've got bits of concrete falling down. You've got leaks in the roof. You can't sit down if you want to sit down without your legs getting squashed. We need a completely new stadium. Others saying you can revamp this stadium. This isn't like, you know, fixing a car. This is something that has a real heritage, football heritage. This has something that we all love. It's got that emotional attachment. Let's not just demolish it and start again. Let's revamp it. Let me know what you think. I don't think we're going to be any clearer anytime soon what's going to happen, but eventually they are going to have to make a decision, and that's what this task force that features the likes of Andy Burnham, I think Duncan Drasdow's on it, I think Lord Seb Coe's on it as well. They're looking at it as well, saying, look, you know, what could this mean in terms of infrastructure? Because if you are going to increase the capacity here, rebuild a stadium, build a new stadium, you're going to have to look at transport links. That involves local government as well. So all this talk that, you know, the United are going to ask for a bit of a handout from the government, it's not completely true when it comes to the stadium. I think they're talking about infrastructure, which, you know, the government or the council or whoever are going to have to get involved in if you are looking at transport links and all that jazz. Let me know what you think as well, because something like this is obviously very, very emotive. One final story I want to talk about. This was in the Daily Mail, and this is about United looking at this aftercare programme they've got for this alumni programme for former players. I think this is important, this. Really, really important. This is about former academy players or players at Manchester United and giving them a bit of aftercare once they leave the club, because a lot of players don't make it. They don't just not make it at Old Trafford at Manchester United. They don't make it in football. For every sort of, you know, Kobbie, Mainoo, Marcus Rashford, or even a player like, I don't know, if you look at the amount of players that have left Manchester United and gone on to have good careers, you know, Danny Drinkwater or someone like that, Fraser Campbell, players that have gone on and they might not have made it at Old Trafford, but they've gone on and they've done bits elsewhere, or maybe, you know, won trophies, or Danny Simpson's another one, another good example. Any Danny that's gone to Leicester, basically. But some players who don't make it, they don't get aftercare. They're not looked after, and they struggle because football's their life, and when the football doesn't work out, they haven't got a plan B. They don't know what they're going to do. They're obviously heartbroken that it's not worked out for Manchester United. They might struggle to get a club full stop, and they might end up just sort of kicking around the lower leagues, kicking around non-league, and then not really doing anything. And some of them don't have a plan B and an alternative career path. That's what this is about, this alumni programme, and I think it's really important. I think it's good that Manchester United are doing that, working with former players to try and give a bit of aftercare, a bit of help to former academy graduates or academy players here at the club, or former players, to make sure they are properly looked after. And just finally as well, it is Kobbie Mainoo's birthday. He is the grand old age of 19 years old. A happy birthday to him. Listen, where would we be without Kobbie Mainoo? That sounds crazy to be saying that about a kid who's literally just turned 19, but he has been the one bright spark this season in a pretty disastrous campaign, if we're being brutally honest. It's not just his performances, it's not just his important goals. You look at the goal against Liverpool, the goal against Wolves, of course, that late winner, but his performances have been absolutely phenomenal. He's just rejuvenated everyone, hasn't he? He's given us all that lift when we desperately needed one. I mean, I was there in Houston when he got injured against Real Madrid, and people thought, oh, that's a shame, after the good performance against Arsenal in New Jersey. We thought it's a shame, but he's probably not going to be a first team player just yet anyway. He'd probably just been in and around the fringes of the first team squad. However, when he came back from his injury, he was straight in that first team squad, and we saw it at Goodison Park with that performance that he put in. We saw it with other performances. We've seen it throughout this season. He has been one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, and that isn't me just getting carried away in a bit of hyperbole. That is true. That's how good he's been, to the point where he's now a dead cert to go to the Euros for Gareth Southgate England team, and for me should start in that team because he's just brilliant. So happy birthday to him. Anyway, this has been the Paper Talk. I've been Jay Motty. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.